Hello everybody, it's Becca from So Darn Twisted, as you can clearly see here. This morning I was asked if I would create a YouTube video about how to organise printables and digital files that are found on the internet, ones that you either purchase or freebies that you download. So I am going to do that now. Veronica, this one is for you. I actually remembered who asked me to do it because it was only this morning and I had some free time, so here we are. So here is what I do. As always, I'm going to jump straight in. No point messing around here. Alright, so as you can see here, I have two folders. I have my resources for commercial use and I have my resources for personal use. And as you can see, this one is not very long at all, whereas this one has lots. So, why do I keep them separate? Copyright infringement, or the avoidance of, which I will come back to a bit later on. This isn't going to be a hugely long video, but I'll get to that part as an aside rather than the main thing, because the main thing is organisation here, but copyright features very heavily, so I will cover it with you. Some of you will already know and understand copyright, but I've found in recent time that the majority of people who are making journals and journal related things really don't know about copyrights, and it pays to, or you could end up being the one that pays quite significantly. So yeah, we'll get round to that shortly, but here is how I organise my files. I have a three to four step method really. So the first thing that I do is I make all the categories that I am going to want, and then when I download things I put them straight into my little to sort folder because I can't always organise the files immediately, and I fully admit I do actually have some folders here that are not very well organised because I did a Dropbox dump, forgot to go through the computer, I was doing it on my iPad, and just yeah, so that just went to hell in a handbasket basically. So yeah, some of them are a complete mess, but the general gist is still the same. So for example, if I go into my animals and insects, you'll see that I have bats, bird, butterflies, insects, and then there's just some loose sort of random ones, sort of these are various animals kind of thing rather than one particular one. That should actually be in the butterflies, but I've clearly missed it. So different types of animals, I could put those in a miscellaneous folder within there kind of thing. So as you can see, there's some in there that I haven't done anything with yet. Backgrounds, I tend to do exactly the same for backgrounds, because I do have a separate folder for them, because obviously for journals that I need to print out backgrounds for, but also backgrounds that I can then use to create artwork and use it as the base. And this one is in a mess. It's a complete mess. Look, it's terrible. This was part of my. Excuse me, my watch keeps pinging at me. Heather Swearingen, that's you, lady. She's sending me lots of messages. So sorry about that. But yeah, so I generally do have, categories for stuff, but I've had some stuff dumped in there that I haven't got around to putting into the relevant folders yet. Sometimes I just do it by colours, so I know that if I want green backgrounds, I'm going to go there. If I'm doing a Halloween journal, I'm going to go there. Christmas journal, I'm going to go there. So I don't have to go trawling through all of my backgrounds to find what I want to use. So it's a category and then subcategories. That's how I do that. If there's stuff that can be a bit tricky to categorise, you can also use tags. So you can create your own tag system on Macs and Windows where you can set up. So if I say I wanted to have the tag that was, vintage, so I can just type vintage and it would just show me everything that is tagged as being vintage, and I can just pick and choose what I want. So that's another way of keeping it organised, is to use tags. So yeah, I have one for backgrounds there. I have brushes for Photoshop and Procreate, which as you can see here come from different sources as well, so that helps me know Brush Easy, I know I have to use a credit if I'm making a printable using their brushes. Creative Fabrica I already own a license for because I have a subscription. If my subscription expires, I then cannot use those anymore, so I would just go through and delete everything that was Creative Fabrica anyway. And as you can see here, these are Procreate brushes rather than Photoshop, but they've still got Creative Fabrica on the end, so I know that if I was to end my subscription, I could just type in CF and Creative Fabrica in my search bar and then just delete everything that that has that tag on it. So again, really good way of doing it. Collections, I tend to keep these together, so junk journal kits and the like that you can download. Again, as you can see, a lot of these came from Creative Fabrica, but I keep those collections together because there is no point really me separating out the backgrounds, the clip art components, you know, that kind of thing. It's better just left together. Dividers and flourishes, you know, so you're talking, and a lot of these I do actually rename, you know, so I know what it is. Okay, so it's an ornamental divider section, corners and overlays, filigrees, that kind of thing that I put in corners when I'm making backgrounds, you know, things like that. So it's easy to keep that. Floral speaks for itself, doesn't it really? Fonts, same. And again, I have a separate folder for my commercial use fonts. I don't tend to download personal use fonts at all because when you've got them in your system, you know, in your software and what have you, it doesn't tell you what's commercial and what isn't. So it's better to just make sure. The Graphics Fairy has its own folder because the Graphics Fairy's terms are no more than 6 images in any given project commercially. So I know that if I'm using anything out of the Graphics Fairy, I can pick 6 out of any of these and use them without a further license. That comes under their free license, so that's great. Inspiration stuff, you know, labels, tags and frames, they all go together, and as you can see here, I have this folder that just contains a lot of my licenses. Other stuff is kept, as I mentioned, in the individual folders as well. So yeah, I keep one completely separate for licenses. Other stuff I have is themed, like Mystic and Zodiacs, and down here Steampunk, you know, they've got their own. Halloween and horror, they've got their own themes as well. These are printables that I haven't actually organised into where they need to be yet. Scans of original documents that I need to edit and then categorise, my own original files. My SVG cut files for my Cricut, I keep them all together as well because there's no point me looking through, you know, for example, floral, you know, and actually that's a cut file, you know, not a piece of clip art or anything like that, so I keep those completely separately. Textures and patterns, things like that I'm going to use to make backgrounds with, and vintage illustration that doesn't come under, you know, people or floral or, you know, things like that, so that will just contain the rest of it basically, and anything else goes into a miscellaneous folder, you know. So as you can see, there's lots of stuff here that just doesn't really belong anywhere else, so it goes into its little miscellaneous folder. So for me, that is definitely the best way. And if you download printables from say My Porch Prints, a perfect example. If you download their printables, or sorry, her printables, you can then categorize them, but with her license, which is you can use her printables as a part of something that you are going to sell. So if you're making a journal and you put in a folio that's been made with one of My Porch Prints kits, you know, you can put it in there, but you cannot sell that kit, you know. So there are restrictions in place, and it's good to keep a note, as I've done with Graphics Fairy. Just keep a little, you know, a little bit separate, so you know, peace of mind, I'm allowed to use those. If all you ever do is make things to give away, you don't have to worry about that one at all. If you're never selling anything, then don't worry about it. All you need is exactly the same structure, but you just don't need all the licenses and stuff like that. or to separate things in individual designers or sources. You can just have it in exactly the same method of organisation, but with with the knowledge that you can just use it whatever you want, you know. But that brings me back to the copyright situation, because some things, even personal use, you may not get away with. Some Disney things, for example, they still don't like you to reproduce their work and give it away, although they have got better in recent times. But if you are using things commercially, you should know that companies like Disney and Warner Brothers, who own Harry Potter, for example, um, and I believe they own Nightmare Before Christmas, they are aggressive in their copyright infringement policy. So if you are selling things that are relevant to them, you're putting yourself at risk of getting in a lot of trouble. So if I just show you here, so I searched for Disney printables, and straight away you're inundated with Etsy files, and that's great. Some Disney things are in the public domain, but most of it is not. So if you are selling things, especially if you're telling somebody else that you can use those files commercially, well, that's simply not true. So a lot of these companies will not have licenses. Some will. I'm not calling out any of these particular shops because I don't know who has licenses and who doesn't. So licenses are not transferable, and this is where it can get a little bit complicated. So say this particular shop, they've bought a license to create commercial products. Okay, great. But buying that does not make you licensed to use it in commercial products. They have a license, you don't. So them telling you that you can use it commercially, like as I say, it's simply not true. So that brings me on to up here. This is one of many articles you can find that will give you all of the information that you need. If you live in the UK, you can find it on the Gov UK website. The American government website, I think it's on the federal side of things. In the US, could be wrong there. The US copyright is not my specialty. But as you'll see here, you can find examples of copyright infringement. This is by far not a comprehensive list, but copying any artistic work without a license or written agreement, that is an infringement. Modifying an image, so you take that Disney image or that Nightmare Before Christmas or Harry Potter and you make something else and then you sell it on your website, well, no, that's not okay either. Using copyrighted imagery on your company's website, that's not okay. And this will tell you ways that you can protect yourself, and if you see it, you can report it as well. Possible penalties, can actually carry a prison sentence in extreme cases. So, these people do not mess about. So how do you keep yourself safe when you're trying to find images that you can use? And the public domain is a wonderful, wonderful place to look. And there are many public domain websites out there. Some will have different licenses. So again, you do have to check that you are looking at the right license. So if we are on Wikimedia Commons, we can look at by license type and choose public domain. So we know that anything we find here, so sort of 1890s, in the public domain, so you can sell that picture, that's fine. You can sell it within anything else, that's fine. So that's the best way to operate, is to go completely via the public domain, unless somebody has made something themselves from complete scratch, and has then sold it to you, and they haven't used any copyright or trademark materials. So yeah, that is why I keep the two separate. That's the only reason I was sort of, as I say, putting the copyright thing in this particular video, is because it's very, very relevant. and I urge you, if you do make things and you are selling journals or making printables to sell, I highly recommend that you know about copyright. I'm currently having somebody infringing upon my photographic copyright for some commercial imagery that I took for my client, and it's been given to a really, really big company in the UK without a license, without my permission. So I am currently chasing that legally. So, you know, I'm taking on the big boys, but you know, it's my copyright, it's legal. What they're doing is illegal, so I have every right to take them to court if I wanted to. So just be aware of that. So hopefully that didn't come across as too much of a naughty school lecture thing, but you know, it is something that you do have to be careful of. It is something to be taken seriously, and I know I'm very light-hearted in most of my videos, but you know, we don't. So an old saying is you don't mess with the mouse. So basically, yeah, just do not mess with Disney and the like, because yeah, they will come after you if it's reported to them, or if one of their many people who go searching the internet for unlicensed uses finds you. You'll, first of all, you'll just get a warning, you'll get told off, but you know, some people don't listen. So there you go, this is my structure, this is how I do this. There's some information on copyright and how to avoid problems. In brief, you know, it's a lot more complicated, a lot more complex, but that's the basics. So there you go. I hope that's been helpful to you. I hope that you're now going to run away and go through your computer and organise all of your files. And when you do eventually surface from that, which could be days, if it's more than a week, I'll send search and rescue. You know, come leave me a comment and say whether or not it helped you. Likewise, if you have a better system that you use, I'm always happy to listen. I do love a good organise, as you can tell. So if you have an easier or better system generally you think, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'd like to hear that, and I'm sure the other subscribers would like to see it too. So I have no issues with that whatsoever. Love it if you give me a thumbs up. Love it if you subscribed. If you don't already, there is lots of content and more coming of varying types. So there's something for pretty much everybody so far involved in the junk journal community as it is. So yeah, in the meantime, happy organising and then happy crafting, because hopefully when you go through and organise all your files, you'll be so inspired by the things you've forgotten you have that you'll run off and start creating legally. So have a good one, guys, and enjoy yourselves. Take care. Goodbye.